Welcome to this week's Morphmarket Auctions, ending the last weekend before Christmas, so Friday the 20th all the way through Sunday the 22nd. Quick disclaimer, if you do bid on things and win this weekend or buy anything on Morphmarket this weekend, you are pretty much guaranteed to be waiting a week for that to ship just because next week is indeed Christmas. So very early Merry Christmas to everyone. With that said, let's go ahead and get into our first one, which would be this Super Stripe Disco Clown. And a lot of people always talk about the freeways and the highways in the Yellowbelly complex, which, it's when you get the Yellowbelly and the asphalt mixed, the Yellowbelly and the gravel mixed and all that. But Spectre is another one that's also in the Yellowbelly family, and it also makes an incredibly awesome looking animal. Clown obviously does exactly what you'd expect Clown to do. And Disco is one that a lot of people don't hear about, but it is very similar to Fire. If you take a look, a lot of people will have things listed as Disco / Fire because they had it in certain pairings and they're not positive of which one that it would be. Disco is also in that black-eyed leucistic complex, meaning, if you pair certain combos of these together, you get an all-white snake with black eyes, similar to how the bells work, except that they create ones with blue eyes. But it looks so extraordinary. It's so beautiful and creamy. Really nice looking boy here. I love the perfect line on the head. It's really crazy. And then, of course, this awesome, just busted up dorsal pattern, pretty much just down the back of the animal, just kind of branching out a few times with a few spots here and there on the lower part of the animal, but just absolutely awesome. If this is something that you want to work, this would be a really cool one because remember, that's allelic there. You're always going to get Spectre or Yellowbelly passed along, which is really neat. So if you're breeding something in that sort of project, you can be rest assured that they are going along. Now, with that said, I wouldn't recommend breeding it to a Yellowbelly clown just because you might end up with an ivory clown, and that's pretty much an all-white snake. There's some pattern that will probably sneak through, but that's usually not the ideal way to go. I would recommend breeding something in the Yellowbelly family to it. That would be pretty neat. So definitely a cool boy here. For the right person, I think it's absolutely electric. Following our first one up would be this pair of a Stranger Hypo 100% Het Clowns. It's a male and a female, both Stranger, both Hypo, and both 100% Het Clown. That's pretty darn incredible. Now, there is a reserve price, so we don't know what that'd be, but you can create some awesome things with this. For one, you're guaranteed to always get Hypo. Hypo to Hypo, you're never gonna not get a Hypo. And then Stranger to Stranger, you have pretty high chances of the Super Stranger, and then of course just hitting Stranger in general. The only thing you're not guaranteed on is Clown, which thankfully you can send in a shed test to RGI. But everything would be 66% Het Clowns. So the chance of you getting a Stranger Hypo Clown of some sort, maybe Super Stranger Hypo Clown, are actually pretty good for my first pairing of this too. In fact, it would be bad odds not to really get that. I would say I kind of would go into this pairing just thinking that you should. In fact, you have 1 in 8 odds of hitting a Stranger Clown Hypo and 1 in 16 odds of hitting a Super Stranger Het Hypo. So some pretty darn good odds, I would say. This would be a cool one. That would be an amazing one to hit. And then staying on Stranger would just be a visual Stranger Clown we want to show here. No reserve on it from Wagner Reptiles here. A very good breeder. You can kind of see how awesome this boy really is. And if you want to start working Stranger into your projects, getting a boy would be a good way to go. Eventually, obviously, as Stranger becomes more prolific, he could start to lose value, but that won't be for a little while. And, it never hurts to have some boys on hand. A lot of people overestimate this and say it's a female game. You certainly should have more females, but you should have a lot of males sitting around. You don't want to make the mistake of getting a bunch of females and then realizing that you have like one male that's decent to go to all of them, and then maybe he doesn't want to go that year, right? That would pretty much suck. So definitely don't underestimate getting some males in there and even some backup males. So I just show you some kind of cool examples of one. This is the Stranger Red Stripe Clown. Just a simple combo. Adding red stripe in there adds a lot of these rusty reds and almost like a dried blood. Like, look to the back of the animal here. Incredible looking animal here. Just an absolutely beautiful ball python here. I love the blushing. Despite how dark this animal is, the blushing that just kind of just shoots up here. It's just so nice. Here's a really cool example of a Stranger, and it's not even a visual clown. This is a GHI Stranger Mahogany Yellowbelly Het Clown. Just so insane. You don't get this really anywhere else. This thing just looks exotic amongst exotic animals. I don't know if there's any paradoxing going on here or anything like that, but just wow. So you can definitely see this power in working a project like this. When something looks as good as this and it doesn't even hit the visual clown, just wow. Can you imagine that with the visual clown? It's absolutely incredible. Moving right along, I don't need to show you a what if picture because you have it right here. It would be this Pompeii which is a Spotnose red stripe, Yellowbelly black pastel clown, which is also possible chocolate. I will say this, it definitely looks different. It actually looks a little bit lighter than some of them. Almost like it's got some sort of enhancing gene in there, like fire or something like that, or maybe even the special just a little bit looks like that. Just really cool. You don't see stuff like this all the time. Having a Pompeii on auction around Christmas time is incredible, and you can see there's already a bid on it. A little under a day left. So if you're watching this on Friday, this will go today, if it already hasn't even. So definitely jump over there and check it out if you want to jump in on this. You know, finding a Pompeii for sale, you know, especially at these prices, is definitely not something you see all the time. So check it out. Another one you do not see very often, I think we've seen it a few other times, and I love showing them off, would be the Super Scaleless 66% Het Pied. So remember, this is just the Super Scaleless. It should kind of almost look like a normal, right? Just a little bit, but without scales, and it does not. The pattern is all wonky and almost looks Enchi, and then obviously the color almost looks like some sort of form of desert ghost because it's so clean. We haven't even gotten to the fact that, of course, you know, it's scaleless. Now, looking at an animal like this, it's easy, I'm sure, for someone to look at this and say, I must have this. It's the most cool and unique thing I've ever seen. But I would caution against it, especially if you don't have ball pythons or have had little work with them, because quite frankly, they are more difficult than ball pythons. You should treat them like they're their own species. They are ball pythons, but their care is different. They need a higher humidity, and the problem with that is that they also, with having no scales, they no longer have protection from certain things anymore. So it's best not to have too many rough surfaces. So, you know, paper towel or a cocoa-based like soil, not husk, but a soil is probably best. And paper towel, while it's a mainstay, even though it doesn't look pretty, you have to keep up on that pretty much daily. Trust me, we are half the year on paper towel, and quite frankly, we're staying on paper towel a lot longer this year than normal before we switch to cocoa husks. So, you know, but the downside of paper towel is that you have to keep it watered a lot to keep the humidity up, even for my regular ball python. So keeping a scaleless on it would be maybe twice daily mistings. Maybe not quite that much, depending on what your idea of misting is, but it would be more. Let's just put it that way. On top of that, without the scales, you want to be very careful with feedings, I would imagine. That said, I don't have one, and I don't really plan to get one. However, if you do ever get the opportunity and someone will allow you to handle a super scaleless ball python, I highly recommend it. It is a different kind of experience. It's holding snakes is an experience. Holding a super scaleless is even more crazy. It just feels so different. I can't really explain it other than to recommend that you give it a shot. So if you want one of these, I recommend you do a lot of research, because you want to make sure you give it the proper care. They don't have issues with their health if kept up on with their humidity, and their sheds are good, but it's definitely more work than a regular ball python. Coming in next would be this Super Orange Dream Vanilla Cream Calico 100% Het Clown. Vanilla Cream is the nickname, I believe. So that would be Fire, Super OD, Vanilla, and Calico, all with a Het Clown. Being a girl, this is a really nice one to get if you want to work a cool clown project. You're always guaranteed to get Orange Dream in the pairing, so if you breed a visual clown to this with some extra stuff in there, hopefully you're going to be pretty happy that you're always getting Orange Dream and a good chance at hitting those clowns on top of that. With everything else too, with the Fire, the Vanilla, you're always getting some really creamy looking animals. It's the reason why they call it a vanilla cream. This girl, whenever you get a super, it's awesome because they're never going to produce a normal. The only thing that would make this better if it was a visual clown. But it's really cool, very sharp. If you're looking for a good girl in a clown project, this would be it. You don't look any further. It's a really good one, and I think it's going to be decently affordable, all things considered, quite frankly. I can see it getting a little bit more, but I don't see a crazy bidding war going for this. I could be wrong, of course, but a very sharp animal, and I think that pretty much anybody could find some good use for something like this. Next up would be a pretty cheap one, one that I suspect won't go for a whole bunch. And there's two of these actually from the same breeder. I believe both males. Now, the reason I wanted to include this is because, for one, it will be cheap. So for people buying on a budget that want to create something cool, I got good news for you. Having a guaranteed asphalt isn't always the most common thing, because asphalt and Yellowbelly are usually kind of paired together, I've noticed, because they are the byproduct of people missing when they're trying to create freeway ball pythons, which we talked about a little bit earlier when we were talking about that super stripe. But this one is a guaranteed asphalt, because that was not the case for the pairing that made it. It is a Asphalt Het Clown at that. So if you breed this to a visual clown girl, Yellowbelly, you have a chance to get a freeway clown. And that's how you can kind of do it on a budget, and you can make something absolutely incredible that doesn't cost an arm and a leg. If you kind of take a look at some of the freeways that are out there, here's your basic freeway right here, courtesy of Chris Hardwick doing a highlight of this combo. Right here you can see the pastel or super pastel freeways. How nice that one looks. They do age a little bit differently, you know, they kind of bring in a little bit more of a sandy look as they age, but just absolutely incredible looking babies. You can see some of the variability in that, even just electric, literally looks like electric bolts running through this animal, and the pretty stark black that kind of borders it. Lots of contrast here. You can kind of see the Mardi Gras too, which is the freeway with Enchi. Really colorful snake with a lot of contrast in it too. But those are sort of the things you can work with that. Now, not for everybody, no doubt, but if you want to work some of these cool projects and add clown to the mix as well, on top of everything we just showed you, this would be a good way to do it on a budget. But for someone who wants to get in on a budget and create cool things at the same time, this is a really solid way to go. Gotta show this guy off here because it has one of the most sought after genes in ball pythons right now, especially when you're talking about clown, would be this Redhead, red stripe, Yellowbelly, cinnamon, het clown. If this was a visual clown, I can't imagine it being up here, but this is a really solid boy. People will look at this and make the very unfortunate mistake of dismissing it, saying, I don't want a boy that's a het clown. And traditionally, I would absolutely agree with you. If you watch my videos, I always say it's not ideal. However, I also always say that in some cases that it does warrant a look, especially if you're on a budget like the one we just previously showed was a het clown. But even not so on a budget, if you want a redhead clown, be prepared to shell out a bit of money. If you want to make a redhead clown though, well, I can tell you right now that this might be a good way to go. Redhead is a highly sought after gene. It's subtle as heck by itself, but then again, so is red stripe. So is Yellowbelly. But when they get into combos, they start to make a lot of noise. They are absolutely incredible. This could be a boy that you use to hit the visual example, or get yourself your redhead clown boy, and then eventually grow that boy out and then use him instead. Then you can move on from this boy here and pass that same opportunity on to someone else and pretty much get your money back for whatever you spend on this guy. I'm very curious what this one may end at, quite frankly. I would really like to see if this one starts to catch fire and go. Like I said, Redhead usually catches a lot of attention. You do see some interest in this, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a bidding war at the end though. Next up would be this Leopard Hra Het Pied. Everybody knows what Leopard is. It brings in all this crazy pattern and whatnot, boldens the blacks, but HRA is a fairly overlooked genetic. Short for Het Red Exantic, HRA does bring in a little bit of a more bold backing stripe down the back, and you can kind of see what it did here and kind of pushed it all into the middle in a way. You have the normal dorsal stripe flanked by two very bold black stripes kind of going down the back there, which make up the background of the snake. It's really cool. Very nice. Incredible example of an HRA, quite frankly. Being in a female, if you wanted to take a chance on a genetic, you also have the Het Pied lurking around in there, so you could use this in a recessive project as well. I don't suspect this will go for a whole bunch. I think people will overlook it. And if you want to get a cool, unique looking animal that's gonna add a little bit of flair, and things like this could bring attention to you and what you do and what you're creating. An animal like this, people create a conversation about it. You know, you see this, you're just like, what? You know, what? It can't just be Leopard Het Pied, And so, you know, it's HRA, that's what it's doing. You know, it does this. You know, conversation starters are what break the ice. So it's a good way to sell the project as well. So a very cool looking girl. Don't see this every day either. This is a surprising amount of auctions and high quality ones for the week before Christmas. Gotta say, I thought maybe it would tone down a little, and while there aren't as many pages, the pages are full of good stuff. And that doesn't stop here with this Enchi Sunset boy. This is a potential to get into Sunset for pretty cheap. I don't know what we'll go for, but I'm honestly surprised that it's only at 50 right now. I say this often, but still people will say it. Sunset can brown out when by itself or in a combo like this. As it ages, you can kind of see how it might eventually lose the burst near the belly, but it's very easy to offset. My favorite combo with Sunset is banana. Having banana in the mix is incredible. Lavender, if you're gonna double recessive it, that is a really incredible one. Those are my favorite combinations. They remain a very bright and orange snake. And quite frankly, banana Enchis are incredible too. So that'd be a good option to go, is get a banana female to bring this to. Maybe have her Het Sunset and try to go for that combo. I would really love to see something like that. I'm pretty sure it has been created, in fact. So this could definitely get spicy near the end. Taking a quick break from the ball pythons, I do want to talk about the hognoses. There's not a whole bunch, but there is one specifically that I'd like to call out. Well, actually two, and it'd be this pair of double het leucistic albinos. So albino is about one of my favorite morphs. It's incredibly orange and reddish. It's probably my favorite species that shows albinism. It's just so vibrant. But leucistic is exactly what it sounds like, and it's still pretty new to the hognose community. Leucistic is an all-white snake. I really think the picture here is outstanding too. So if you're not familiar with hognoses, you can kind of see what they're capable of, and it might trick you. You see that hood right there? It might make you think, oh my God, this is a cobra? It is not a cobra. They mimic the cobra. And that one right there in that picture is pretty much doing that. They'll flatten their heads like this and do that. In fact, this is a double mimic in that it mimics a cobra and the pattern of a rattlesnake. So you have a double mimic in these little spicy noodles, but they are all bark and no bite pretty much. These animals are full of attitude and pretty much never bite almost. That's my experience. In fact, the nicest one that I personally breed here is the only one that'll try to bite me. And that's because it wants food and it trusts me. So it's just like, oh, you food? It's the only one that has bitten me, in fact. And no, I did not get envenomated because they have rear fanged venom and it's about the equivalent of a bee sting. So it takes a while for them to get to that point. And even if they do get to that point, it's not anything super serious to worry about. If you're wondering what a leucistic looks like, well, look no further. Here you are. It's an all-white animal. It's very starkly beautiful, and it is a recessive amongst them. I love this picture. You might think that this is a dead snake, but it is not a dead snake. Hognoses are also very, very famous for playing possum or playing dead. This is precisely what they'll do. You can see the other picture where it's like, oh, okay, I'm not dead. But then it's, if you mess with it a certain way, they roll over on their belly, display their bellies, which usually have these crazy colors on them, and then they open their mouths and stick their tongue out and they pretend that they are dead, and they'll must all over the place. They make a disgusting mess and they smell, and they'll, you know, in the wild they also eat toads, so it's thought that they are not only venomous but they're mildly poisonous. You know, everybody always loses their minds about that. If you say a snake is poisonous, like, no, it's not, it's venomous. Poisonous means that if you eat it, then you're gonna get sick / die. And venomous means that if it bites you, that you will get sick or die. But in the wild, they argue that since they eat these toads, which can be semi-toxic, that they might be poisonous as well. So they kind of show that off. They show their belly and they're just like, you don't want to eat me. And quite often the prey is like, yeah, you're right, I don't. So that's what it's doing here. So it's a little side note there, but very, very funny and interesting, while also being a beautiful animal. Back into ball pythons would be this male double het VPI Axanthic. And again, I can't say it enough, it's never ideal to work your hets in a male, but sometimes you got to, especially to hit the combinations you want. Looks like they accidentally forgot to put the het Axanthic on there, but down here and up here it straight up says that it is also het VPI Axanthic. Now that would be a really interesting one to work because paint is very unique and Axanthic strips away a lot of the colors, as many well know. But here's what a lot of visual paints look like. Very granulated, very cool, very controlled chaos. You know, this broken up granulation. Really cool and a highly underrated gene. Now imagine that black and white. Very nice if I do say so myself in my mind anyways. So a really cool project you can work. You just need to source yourself a female of the same type. So was it for everybody? No. Is the Paint VPI Axanthic probably going to be very cool if it hasn't already been created? Yeah. Another really cool project would be Puzzle, and this proven Orange Dream Leopard NOCO line special, which is a different line of special, is also a het puzzle. So if you want to get into puzzle and you want to do it quick, this could be a way to do so. If you get yourself a het puzzle female or a puzzle female, you could put him to that and immediately start passing on these awesome genetics on top of that. If you are curious about what a visual puzzle looks like, well, look no further. It really jumbles up the pattern and creates these so-called puzzle pieces. Definitely one of the most growing morphing morphs out there, it is very compatible with just about everything. It goes well with a lot. On top of that, it kind of cleans the animal up and brightens it just a bit too. So you can imagine how well a lot of these genetics will play with that. Leopard consistently brings in some more bold blacks, but also jumbles the pattern as well. So you have a lot of unique pattern. Orange Dream brings in a nice orange tinge to the animal, and Special is a enhancing gene, so it cleans it up. All of these would serve to make a really, really awesome visual if you could hit this specific one, but in a visual. As I've said, maybe this boy, since he's already ready, could breed for you very quickly. You hit your combo, and then once they get up to size and are able to breed, maybe you get a male to replace him, you can then move on from him and pass that same opportunity to someone else. More double hets, but this time in a female, so a little bit more ready to go. So not as crazy, because you could get a visual male to breed to it, and quite frankly, you could get a visual male immediately to breed to this pretty big girl. She is a proven breeder female. It looks like you're getting a male with it too. Free male. I just caught this free male, a blackhead Het Kiki, possible clown, and a few others down there too. And Kiki, by the way, I haven't even gotten into that, is the combination of clown and genetic stripe. It's the combo that they kind of affectionately name it. And it's really sharp. And again, another one I don't see a lot of people talking about. In fact, there's a few people who I know that really are kind of into it. Somebody who I know personally with Carter's Coils that are getting into it themselves currently. And I like that I know someone that's going to be into it. I think it's really cool. Ninja Ball Pythons kind of champions the project, and so does Royal Constrictor Designs, who I first heard about the Kiki and saw them from. There is a reserve price, so you kind of bid up to where you're comfortable. If you're comfortable, say, with $250. You know, don't just bid $250. Kind of walk it up in maybe $25 increments until you get to the part where you are comfortable and you don't want to go any higher. And if you haven't met your reserve price, well, you don't have to worry about it, because the auction will just null and void unless someone else takes it to that reserve price. If you're curious as to the potential of a Kiki, well, look no further than this. This is just an Orange Dream Red Stripe, genetic stripe clown. Absolutely incredible and bursting in color. The belly of the snake is very creamy, and the back of it is very busy with all these crazy striping and whatnot. It takes the normal genetic stripe and kind of turns it on its head and creates a lot of variety, but just down the dorsal of the animal. Really cool example. This is from Ozzy Boyd's, who is obviously one of the higher end breeders out there. So if they're into Kiki, you know it's something worth looking at. This is also one you don't see every day. These auctions this week are really surprising me. This would be a proven male Orange Dream Tri-Stripe. Tri-Stripe brings a deep, bold black stripe down the entire back of the snake. I believe it's called tri-stripe because you got that stripe. You've usually got the stripes kind of running parallel to it as well with the pattern and everything like that. The orange on this particular one kind of brings in some nice orange on the side as well, but normally it's even darker, the dark stripe down the back. You don't see this very often, and quite frankly, tri-stripe is not a cheap project to get into. I'm surprised that there is no reserve on this, or that it wasn't started higher. This is an incredible opportunity for someone. And I might be in on this one just because of what it is and what it represents. A male means that you're going to start to be able to breed this into your collection and create your own hets, whether they're double hets, you know, with something like clown, or a color morph would be very nice, or of course just getting it into a lot of incomplete dominance and dominant genes. A lot of potential here. I don't even know where to go from this other than to say this might be one of the most crazy auctions I've seen, because I don't think I've seen one of a proven breeder status at this amount. Like I said, I will definitely be keeping an eye on this one myself. I'm kind of caught off guard, no, not gonna lie, that this is on here with no reserve and it's a proven breeder. Free shipping as well. Like I said, it's crazy good opportunity for someone. You've got a few days, or a couple days at least, after this video comes out to kind of watch this one and think about it. This is gonna go to someone very lucky. And speaking about proven breeders, Kyle Frost Reptiles is definitely serving up some very nice animals this week, and that would be this proven Het Zebra. If you noticed, Het Zebra doesn't look like a normal, it doesn't look like a het. It's very much argued that maybe they shouldn't even be recessives, because I mean, look at it. It is incredibly visual. You know, you see the pattern jumping over the back of it. Nothing about this screams normal in any way, shape, or form. But if you are curious what the zebra actually looks like in its homozygous form, well, look no further. It is very, very nice. You can kind of see the striping running down the backing. It lightens it up quite a bit. Even with Pastel, which everybody always wants to hate on, it is really, really nice. Zebra is one of those morphs that is really high up on people's lists, and it should be. It is incredible. Now, there's a lot of talk whether that Striker, Mackenzie, they all are very similar, and they all do very similar things. The Hets, or the single gene form of the Mackenzie and the Striker, which we have here, look very similar. But it's never been proven, and quite frankly, I could care less. It'll be nice to know if I can start buying Het Zebras, you know, to put my Striker to. That would be incredibly cool. But if they are or they are not, it makes really no difference to me, because they are very similar to each other. And I work the Striker because I love what it does. The Super Striker looks exactly like a Zebra, and whether they're the same or they're different, I highly recommend this project. This is also another one that you can see the bidding is very low. This is a proven breeder. And what I told you about the Het Zebra passing on, you can look at it right here and see what it looks like. Your hets that you get are going to be pretty visual. So if you want to create the zebra, the visual zebra, you'll know what to look for in your babies that you want to hold back when you get yourself a female with hopefully a lot of really cool genes in there as well. But incredible deal. I can't imagine this one also not going a little bit crazy. With free shipping, I mean, that's the other thing too. I mean, how can you not think about these? Just really cool animal. On to our final four, starting with this pied Het Sunset, female at that. Again, free shipping. We're 3 in a row right now. You can make sunset pieds with this. You know, you get a sunset male with pied, or maybe if you don't have the moolah to do something, you get a sunset het pied male to put to this to save a little bit of money. You'd be always getting pieds, and then 1 in the 4 of those pieds should be a sunset as well, and that would be really incredible. Brock Wagner is one of the absolute leaders in the Sunset project, making high quality animals. So you'd be getting a really great bloodline from a really great breeder at that. $300 with 2 bids, and about 2.5 days left to go by the time this video comes out. There's some time for it to grow, and I can see it definitely doing so, but I don't know by how much. If you're into the Sunset project and you want to get pied in there, really good option to consider right here. One of my favorite combos, Confusion Clowns. This one also happens to be Het Desert Ghost. Wow, 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 wow. And I've been on the prowl, on the hunt, so to speak, for a Confusion Clown for some time. Now, I would like a male, but I certainly wouldn't turn my nose up at a female, especially with Het Desert Ghost. I'm not into Desert Ghost. It's not something I have gotten into, but I have thought about it lately, getting it into it in a smaller regard, basically having some hets on hand and stuff like that. And, you know, maybe getting a visual example that I can work lightly into some combos. So this would be a really cool one. Now, I don't see a picture of the belly, which saddens my heart, because Confusion Clown bellies are the best. You can kind of see right here, it's one of the only morphs in ball pythons that bring in pattern onto the belly, and I love it. It reminds me of what the Hognoses do. I absolutely love it. I know it's not something you see all the time being on the belly of the animal, but I can't get enough of it. It's incredible, it's unique. I absolutely love what Confusion does to clowns in the belly and what it does in general. It is similar-ish to Leopard and what it does in jumbling things up, but very unique in and of itself, and quite frankly it works very well with something like Leopard. They just kind of tag team together to create the most wild looking animals around the earth. This is another one I can definitely see growing. In fact, when I looked at this, it had only 1 bid, and now it's at 3, and the reason for that is one of them being me, and then the other of me being outbid in the time I've been filming this, which I fully expected to be outbid. I just want to have a placeholder so I can see when there's an hour left what we're looking at, and whether I want to roll up my sleeves and go to war to try to win this girl. Very beautiful girl, and the Desert Ghost can't be understated. Like I said, I don't work it a lot, but imagine this with Desert Ghost being as clean as it could be, having those blacks be even bolder. This auction this week has been incredibly surprising on how many good quality animals there are. Next, gotta look at this Super Chocolate Leopard Het Desert Ghost, 66% Het Hypo. And I would immediately send this in for a shed test. You got good odds of RGI coming back at you with some good news, because Desert Ghost Sunsets worked very well together. They both are somewhat similar, but enough different that you're going to be creating the brightest animals on the planet Earth with them. The cleanest animals at that. And while I say bright, they don't necessarily always have to be. They can just exude contrast at that. And Super Chocolate's certainly going to help in that regard, because chocolate is a little bit more of a darkening morph, as you can definitely see here. And Leopard just brings in so much pattern disruption. Lots to really like about this. I love the chocolate gene and what it does and how rich it looks. It really exudes that chocolate. It looks like melting chocolate down the animal in the morph. But yet, look at the pattern on the dorsal of the animal, and you can see how it works still with good with contrast, because the pattern on the dorsal animal is still that nice orange look that is synonymous with ball pythons in many cases. So it doesn't erase that. It doesn't just completely erase that. So chocolate will still work well in combinations that have more bright genes too, much like how blackhead works and such like that too. Lots to love about this. You will always get chocolate out of this combination, always. And chocolate, like I said, is one that I definitely got to get into my collection at some point. Just got to find the right combination. That speaks to me because I only have a limited amount of room, and I got a lot of holdbacks that I got to make up room for with a lot of projects I'm going to be working in the future. But if this proves out as Het Hypo, wow, chef's kiss. The beauty of that animal that it will eventually create will be second to none. Jeez, look at this. Even in the light, look at the cool colors on the head. Kind of reminds me of certain clown combos like with Cypress and such like that, and what it does to the head, or mahogany and such. All right, and for our final two, they are somewhat in the same family, and it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, genetic. We're talking about Monarch. And wow, this one's a good one. No reserve, it went up pretty shortly before I started doing this. I gotta believe I'd be surprised to see it not go. It's a really nice one. If I was in the market for another male, you know, just for a starting one, yeah, this would definitely have my attention. This Pastel Enchi Yellowbelly Monarch kind of has changed my perception about Enchi in Monarch. Normally I don't like Enchi in my Monarchs because I think it lightens it just a little bit, and it brings in the striping, which looks cool, but it takes away from that purplish look of the pattern that you see right there. But this one, I think maybe it's the Yellowbelly, and then ironically maybe the Pastel, which is keeping it nice, because Pastel looks very good in Monarch. It's very good. That is a morph where I like the darker side of the Monarchs, but the reason I like the dark morphs in Monarch is because it works well contrastingly with the lighter tones and the light side. It just contrasts very, very well, and you can see that here too. Very orange, bright animal, except for in that mahogany field. I really like this boy here. Very good. If you were getting into Monarch and you needed a good male, just wow. Again, this is a good one, and you might look at that and see 1,100. It's as well worth it for the price with Monarchs right now, and you'd be getting a good male that's ready to go. Immediately, you want to know honestly what I think? What I would want to work this into? I can't help but to immediately say I would want to make freeway or highway Monarchs. If I could get Asphalt or a Het Monarch female that's got asphalt or gravel or something along those lines, that would be incredible. And you already got Enchi too, so you can make the Mardi Gras Monarchs. Just, oh my gosh. I would just literally call it the King of New Orleans. Unbelievable potential with this. I don't think anybody's ever done it, but I immediately think of that. And you've got the ingredients right here. You just need to get the female, you know, with the right ingredients, but you can make that. And I think it would be worth it. I think it would look very, very sharp. If you didn't want to spend that much money on a male Monarch, well, look no further. You can get this boy here, who also has no reserve, from the same breeder. And this would be a double Het Monarch Hypo, but also Spotnose, Black Pastel, and Super Pastel. And like I said, Pastel works good with Monarch, so you got no worries there. Even though you look at this animal and you don't see the Monarch, that's because it's a Het. The fact that it's Hypo as well means that you have even more working for you. So you can start working a double recessive project that I don't think I've seen a lot of people do much with. I don't think I've even seen a Monarch, a Hypo. I wonder if it's been done. I suspect. Likely, yes, but maybe not. There's a lot to be done with Monarch still. But I'm really excited with all those other genetics in there too, especially Spotnose, Black Pastel. If you wanted to do this on a little bit more of a budget, this one doesn't even have any bids yet either, and much cheaper. So if you wanted to do it on a budget and get yourself a female that's also Het Monarch, try to go for a Black Pastel, Spotnose, Pastel. So you get the pewter Monarchs with Spotnose too. Spotnose looks great in it. Could potentially run up your alley. So some really good Monarchs to end our video today on. I can't get over enough of how much I love this. If this was a female running at this price right now, I would have already placed a bid. You can mark your words on that. And in fact, I'm very tempted now that I kind of said the thing that I said earlier, but I gotta be a good boy. It's Christmas time after all. Hope you enjoyed the video. Again, as always, at the end of my videos, I always say that I would love to see or hear what you have gotten. And what I mean by see is you can always join our Discord or message us on social media and show us what you picked up that you saw on the auction videos here from somebody. Also, if you won anything in this auction, I always like hearing about it. So I hope everybody everybody has a Merry Christmas. We will not be doing a live this next week. We always do the lives on Tuesday, but that is Christmas Eve, so we will not be doing it on that day. There is a very small chance we could do Monday, but I do not believe that that will happen. So hope you enjoyed. If you liked this video and you wanted to learn a little bit more about some of the genetics we talked about here, you can actually check those out in our video right here and here.